All right, remember a couple of days ago, I talked about, it was during our quiet time, I recommended a book called Counterviolence by my friend E.J. Owens. And this book says, are you prepared to fight for your life? Stay alert and practice often. Now, E.J. talks in the very beginning, chapter 1, violence. He talks about violence. Now, I've got a note in here. Now, he talks about physical violence. He talks about verbal hostility. He talks about how verbal hostility or nonverbal intimidation often leads towards actual physical hostility and physical violence. He talks about the difference and wants you to understand it. And you might say, "Oh, well, Paul, duh, I know what violence means. I went to elementary school. I get the definition." Yeah, I understand that. But right now there are powers at work to convince you. How many times have you heard, violence is never the answer? There's nothing worth violence. Violence is wrong. The war on violence, gun violence, violence. Here's the deal. Everything that the state and their willing lapdogs and the big media are shoving into your face is generally a lie. Because sometimes violence is 100% absolutely necessary because we use it to save and preserve our own lives. And the citizen, however, is way behind the power curve when it comes to violence. Because you probably, I'm guessing, violence is probably pretty unfamiliar to you. And when EJ's talking about violence, he talks about physical violence, verbal hostility, nonverbal intimidation, and actual physical aggression, attack, felonious attack. And the citizen is way behind the power curve because not only is it unknown to them, but today, in our great enlightened modern era, society has tried to convince you that fighting, that violence is taboo. That you shouldn't even want to use violence because violence never solves anything. Until someone is smashing your face into the asphalt. EJ talks a lot about what you need to be prepared for. He talks about, studies done by the Mayo Clinic. He talks about the different circumstances where people find themselves as predators. And I wrote the words, hard men insulate themselves from verbal abuse through frequent inoculations. And what do I mean by that? Jared, what did Coach Saylor refer to you and Mark as?
Man candidates. No, first it was something else.
Ladies? And then he promoted you from ladies to man candidates?
Oh, he did say it was ladies.
Ladies. Yeah. And you're like, that's mean.
I was MC number 1, just so you guys know.
That's hurtful. How terrible is that? No, you weak, spineless little soy-fed mangina. It's called inoculation. Dude, fighting people that actually train to really fight, like for real, not to play a game or to do a sport, but actually people that train to fight, whatever that type of fighting is, whether it's fist fighting or kicking or wrestling or shooting. They talk to each other in a rough manner and they use rough language. And you're like, that's really unbecoming of you. And I don't know how you can say that you're a Christian and use that kind of language. Well, A, I've read the Bible and I know what the prohibitions are. And B, I'm not soft. And I'm not going to be soft. And I'm not going to weaken myself to make you feel better. And when it comes to verbal hostility and succumbing to verbal hostility, I believe one of the reasons that it's so prevalent today is because we raise our children to be so damn weak, and they can't handle it. They can't handle it. Moving on into EJ's book, and I want you guys to get this book. It's not that expensive, and it's worth your time. And basically, like I said, this quite literally could be the written companion piece to the Arm Living DVD that we did. Moving on. He talks about self-defense rights and what is expected of you, what the courts expect of you, what society expects of you. And then I've got a quote here that I underlined because I wanted to speak it into this microphone. And it says, when evil men plot, good men must plan. Who do you think said that, Jared?
I have no
Martin
idea.
Luther King.
Oh, okay.
And I thought that was very interesting. And I underlined it because I wanted to make sure that I spoke that into this black carbon steel microphone. EJ talks about evil, and one of the reasons that we are in such dire straits as a nation, as a world, quite frankly, is because in order for the state to maintain control over the people, to have absolute control, the state has to do away with the notion of good and evil, the Judeo-Christian notion of good and evil, the morality of good and evil, the family, what you're taught, the morals that you're taught by your family, taught by your church. And it must be replaced with, there is no good, there is no evil, there is only what the state tells you. And what the state tells you is correct, and what the state tells you not to do or that you are forbidden to do is wrong or evil. And so today, people have lost track of what genuine evil is. And EJ talks about how our founding fathers believed in the principles of Judeo-Christian values and of good versus evil. And he says on page 15, our founding fathers believed this and shaped our country's guiding principles in order to fight evil, for them to fight evil. The strongest moral action against the good that defines God's character is to set oneself up as God, small g there. This action is belied in the attitude of, I can do what I want, how I want, when I want. But that struck me right there. I was like, wow, that is that evil harpy in a nutshell. I can do what I want, when I want, however I want, and no one can question me because I am above the law. Sounds like someone setting themselves up as God to me. One of the things that EJ gets in here and he talks about is the circumstances in which the crime took place. And the use of violence, despite what you've been told, is not always wrong. It is not always evil. It is not always immoral. Often it is 100% necessary. It is the context with which that violence takes place. Why did the violence take place? And he talks about how human life is more important than a statutory wrong. And essentially that is the doctrine of competing harms. You know, someone is pulled over for speeding. Now, is it against the law to speed? Yes, it is. But the person is pulled over for speeding, the police officer comes with the car, and they have someone in the passenger seat who is, having an asthma attack or a heart attack or about to deliver a baby. And so you say, well, what's more important, getting this person to a hospital quick, fast, and in a hurry, or to obey the posted 55-mile-an-hour speed limit? What is the greater good? What is the greater harm? And that's essentially the doctrine of competing harm.